How to maintain large installations of RTUs. Cybersecurity is a must. How do you keep all your RTUs up to date with the newest security releases? Or change thousands of RTUs firewall settings with a single click? These are the obvious and simple questions, but there's so much. So let's take it step by step. First the dashboard, devices, groups, geolocation, alarm, operation log, firmware, template, HMI, users, and then settings. The dashboard. In the top section, we have the current alarms, which have not been acknowledged. We have 7 devices, 9 group, 3 geolocations, 20 users, and 8 alarms we need to take a look at. We have an overview of the firmware distribution, and here we can see in the groups how many alarms are active or not active. Let's jump into devices. In the devices, you can select the device, and that opens another opportunity to firmware upgrade or apply a template. We'll come back to that later. You can also filter by IP address, firmware version. Then you have a configuration, an overview, and to add automation, firmware upgrade, application program, that means the RTU program, or event logs. Let's start with the event log. The event log, now it fetches online from the RTU and shows the event log. And you can export this one down to your PC for further investigation or sending it to support. If you go into configuration, then here we can go in and put the system settings. So here it shows us what has been done. So if you have a key, we can install that here on the system configuration, serial ports, network settings. Here you can go in and change the network settings. All what you expect to do in a modern RTU. VPN settings, services, enable or disable services. You have the LDAP configuration, but you can also put in a new syslog server IP. And of course you can whitelist and blacklist configurations, and you can also do the ports configuration. So you can delete them here. This is the simple way of maintaining one RTU. If you go a little bit back, then we have the live overview. We are now online on the RTU. Again, it shows us what has been configured and what licenses are installed. But also we have a little dashboard. Now we come into the hardware overview. And here we can immediately see the CPU temp, the CPU load, memory usage, and so on and so forth. And also the status of the inputs. And we can see the power supply is loaded with 23%. The voltage in is 23.85 volt. We can see the status of the inputs, and here are some outputs that are high. But we can also see if there's red in the top, that means that card is faulty. So the service guy that has to go out to this RTU, he has to go look for slot 5 and replace these cards. So we want to know more about that one. Then this is the firmware version, and the serial number of that card. Let's take a look at the groups. In the group area, we divide our substations into groups for easier identifying and advanced automation. So if we take a whole group of UK, if we want to firmware update all these, I can do it from here. But let's take a look, drill a little bit down. So here we have West Midlands, UK. We got Birmingham, Coventry, Dudley, Wolverhampton. And we dig a little bit further into Birmingham. Then the areas of Birmingham, we have what RTUs are in this area here. They are these RTUs. So now in Southern Coalfields, I can choose to firmware update these RTUs in the coalfield, or I can take them one by one. I can again go in, look at the configuration and the overview as we saw before, and go in and change one by one. So that's a simple way of structuring the overview. The red ones are offline, the green ones are online. So that means the red one, you cannot go online and take the overview, but you can do that at the green ones. Now we come to the geolocation. Geolocation is if you put coordinates onto your RTU, then you can find it on the map. And if it's green, it's online. If it's red, it's offline. If it's green, you can click on it, go directly to configuration and overview and see if something is wrong, what is the status of the IOs. If you have a service guy on site, you can tell him it's X amount of milliamps, or this relay is on, or the power supply is loaded too high. All these things you can go directly online and do, and pull out the event logs. And they're also divided into groups. So if you have a geolocation and it belongs to a group, then when you click on that group, it automatically gets the geolocation associated to that group. Now we come to alarms. So let's first look at the configure alarms. How do we make an alarm? So we can add a new alarm, call name test, select a target to monitor, a group or a device. A group, that means a lot of RTUs, or a single device. So in here we're going to take a group. What I want to do, I would like to say if a module is faulty, and what group would I like to have monitor this at? I will take the whole of West Midlands. That means all the RTUs located in West Midlands will now generate an alarm if there's a module faulty. So now we have created the alarm. Then we go back to the alarms. Then if it's a new alarm, you can acknowledge it. This alarm, this is an RTU that's offline, and it's kind of irritating, it is in the list. Then you can invalidate an alarm. So if I go in here and invalidate known reason, and invalidate it, then it's not in the list anymore. But I can go in here and search for them. So who invalidated these alarms? And we can see here, this here RTU, blah, 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 and we see what's going on. And you can search on different filters, cleared, invalidate, return to normal, and so on. So this is the alarm management for the RTU estate. And on this here, we can change it. And we say, what is it you would like to? So if you have a power supply load, condition is if it is higher than, you can put in 90. That means the whole of West Midlands will now have an alarm if the power supply uses more than 90%. Then we should take a look at that. Simple and easy. Now we move from alarms to operation logs. Operations logs is an audit trail. So it tells you everything that has been going on with your estate, if anybody has downloaded firmware and so on. And you have got filters to go in and select who has done it and what's the status. Firmware. In ODIN'S EYE, there are firmware repository where only administrators can upload approved firmware. So this is where all the firmwares throughout the whole ODIN'S EYE are being distributed. So only approved firmwares are uploaded here by admins, and then users and operators can use that. Now we're moving from firmware to templates. What is a template? So template is where you write in all the specific stuff you would like to go down to RTUs, and you can distribute that to one RTU, multiple RTUs, to groups, or to a country. So let's take a look at a template, what it can contain. Now we just add a new template. And I don't want to put in the description. What will be included in the template is depending on you put a cross or not. So if you roll a little bit out, you can see it's quite extensive. You can set in network addresses, host name, redundancy, Wi-Fi. If you like all your estate not to include being able to use Wi-Fi, then you can simply click that off and deploy it. Now your whole estate are not allowed to use Wi-Fi. Same with VPN. If you change some of your VPN settings, this is also where you could do it, deploy to many sites. You want a different time synchronization services. What do you allow and what don't you allow? syslog, put in a new syslog server and deploy that to the whole estate. If you're changing LDAP configuration settings, you don't have to go out to all stations, deploy that to all stations. Same with firewall settings. Whitelist, add a whitelist, blacklist, port configurations, and so on. This is where you do all your configurations templates to download to multiple RTUs. If you have a program associated, it could be pump station 1 or substation 2, then here you assign the program to this template. So that means when the installer he puts in the IP. That's all he has to do. You take care of rest from the top. You deploy all the configurations and everything. And if you're on LDAP, then only the users assigned in the Active Directory can access the RTUs. So it's very simple. If a guy is fired from a company, he will no longer be able to access any RTUs in your infrastructure. So no more with the old admin passwords for all of them. That's history. Once you have saved this here, then you can go here and you can deploy the template, apply template. Then you can apply it to a device or a group, and you can even select more devices. So you can take them individually, in bulks, in countries, depending on what you're deploying from your templates. The HMI part. The HMI is intended for small, simple solutions out in the outstation, where you attach a dumb, thin client to the RTU that displays the web content. In that way, you can maintain your screens from topside, and you don't have to convert anything from Modbus or other protocols to do the display. So here, we can go live on a simple one. Here we just created a power supply on the RTU. This is loaded 25% and a random analog value. And yeah, but if you go back and we change it here, then in this button here, if I want to have another symbol, it can be from this RTU or from another RTU. It doesn't really matter. But it browses automatically the RTU, so I don't have to go in and know the variables. I can just select the variables from the RTU, from this RTU, or from another RTU. So I can mix and match in my display. Simple as that. Save your design, off you go, and it's live. And it's the same pictures they will see on site. Let's take a look at the users. Users, that's like normal, where you can invite users and you can update the role assignment or reset their password. So here you can go into and see what roles have been assigned to them. Now we come to the roles. That's where you put the permission set. So if we go and take a viewer, he can read, but he cannot write. So that means he can read the HMI, but he cannot make any changes to the HMI. He can read the templates, but he cannot create any templates or write anything in the template, and so on and so forth. So this is where you put in the permissions for the role. Then you have user groups. So that means when you create the roles, you can put the users into the groups. So in this case here, we can see that these members here are member of the administrator group. So it's easier to do this. Of course, user invitations. You can invite a user, add a new user invitation, or you can send a password reset to a user. It's relatively simple. It goes well in hand with the last part here. That's more like this settings for users. So if you are on an LDAP, then you can use that. So the main IT responsible, the CIO or whoever it is, can make those roles in the Active Directory. So here you add the Active Directory, and then it automatically fetches the users that are allowed to come into the system. So the first time they log on, it will check, does he have the rights to come onto ODIN'S EYE? Yes, he has. and what permission set does he have. So simple as that.